Chris, your father is so ready right now. He's in the starting block. He's got a new haircut. He's got his shirt on, the one that makes him feel confident, and he is ready to give opinions.
I am. I got him. Let's give him. Why hold him inside? Get him out.
Okay, so the Panthers are the team that made the biggest of the acquisitions this weekend, the one that's exciting locally. How excited are you about the Panthers behaving like the Tampa Bay Lightning?
I am extremely excited about the Cats. They're good and not satisfied with winning one Stanley Cup. I think Marchand is a statement that, hey, we're winning it back-to-back, Jack. And Seth Jones, not a sexy name, the defenseman, I think was just as big a signing as Marchand, who hopefully, like Tkachuk, will be back for the playoffs.
They made a bunch of different moves. Everybody in South Florida is falling in love with Bill Zito. I'm scared of Washington. I don't know that I should be scared of anybody because they were better than everybody last year, and they're doing what the Lightning did, which is Tkachuk is off to the side. Did you guys see that one coming? Did anyone? Marchand wanted to be a Bruin for life. He was there. He's been there how many years? He's got to be the Panthers' oldest player. The Panthers can't have many guys who were born in the 80s. Bobrovsky's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Did you guys have any idea that this was coming as soon as they stashed Tkachuk?
That Marchand was coming specifically? No. I knew that they were working on something kind of shocking from talking to folks. I never in a million years would have assumed it's Brad Marchand, who apparently only wanted to go to Florida. And Pierre LeBrun just tweeted this morning that because most of his salary was given in the form of a signing bonus, Boston retaining part of that salary, it's only going to cost the Florida Panthers $125,000 in real money to have Brad Marchand on their roster, which is solid for a fourth liner.
You are less happy with this than most people are. The thing that I liked about it, it wasn't even just that they're aggressive or they're able to do some of that salary cap magic that will allow them to bring back a healthy Tkachuk if indeed he's ready for the playoffs. To me, the most exciting part about that, in the last couple of years, you've ended the Bruins and the Rangers. They were right there with you, and you finished them both. Like, they're done. And they're done in a way that has to be soul-crushing to their fan base to see, Florida took us out in Game 7. They took us out. They finished our run. We thought we had the best team we've ever had in our life, and now the guy that we love as part of our symbol has agreed to go to them as one of, what was his no-trade his no-trade restriction allowed him to either go to only 8 teams or veto 8 teams. Which one was it?
The reports are that the only team he said he wanted to go to was Florida. And Boston did what they could to make that happen for their captain. So a shocking acquisition. I certainly felt some kind of way about it because I don't like Brad Marchand at all as a person. As a player, I don't even really like him all that much, but it's low risk. And, yeah, the part that sweets the pot for me personally is the fact 100% you ended that Boston Bruins team, that core. You eliminated them back-to-back years, one time as an 8 seed, one time on the verge of elimination. You found a way to level it, and you just blew up their entire blueprint. So I like that. You know that you did that to the Rangers. You know that you did that to the Bruins. Pending on the Carolina Hurricanes, it seems as though Tampa kind of reshaped themselves a little bit with Jake Guentzel, but I'm never going to like Brad Marchand. And you can, quote me, even if he scores, a big-time goal in the Stanley Cup final. It's just never going to land right with me. It's always going to be weird. I like that I don't like him.
I don't think
I'm not
that's
ready to
true
stop
anymore, though.
liking him.
If he wins you a game somewhere, I do not believe that you will remain entrenched in this position.
Like him. I don't like this. I don't like him. But
being able to chirp Bruins fans is going to be sick, though.
That part is funny. It's funny to watch Boston Bruins fans like Portnoy and Katie Nolan all break Pete Blackburn, all of them have their breakdowns, and he ends up going to the team that they hate, but they want to root for the guy. I saw the Dropkick Murphys were in town for a concert, and they were like, we're rooting for Florida the rest of the year.
Biz, who's a Toronto fan, just seeing the Panthers get stronger, just dejected. It's great.
Yeah, Mike's full of shit. He's going to cheer Marchand at the top of a mountaintop the first time he scores a winning goal for the Cats. And you know it. I mean, come on now.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough, but minds keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
We played a while ago the Stephen A. Smith sound talking about Bronny, and I want to get the opinions of the fathers here in the room about what's happening, because I've heard throughout my life in journalism people say some form of there's a line on personal criticism. Don't make it personal. And the line moves, right? Because everyone's definition of what is personal is a little different. But if you attack someone's son on television and they're a professional athlete and it ends up sounding like this, you might want to prepare for the confrontation that Stephen A. found himself at the center of as the weekend began. Listen to this sound.
I'm really, really trying to be as respectful as I possibly can be towards LeBron James. One of the top 2 or 3 players in the history of basketball, number 2 in my eyes. A treasure to the game of basketball that we should and will all miss when he is gone. I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad. The first game of the season, opening night, the Griffeys in attendance, father-son duo playing in an NBA game for the first time, an absolutely positively wonderful story. And then reality sets in.
It remains jarring to see Chris Russo look that jaundiced because the lighting is that bad.
That felt like an episode of General Hospital.
I want to ask you guys about this, where acting and entertainment start infringing on where it is that we head with some of this stuff, because as news is leaking that Stephen A. has re-upped at ESPN for 5 years, $100 million plus, I'm going to assume that Stephen A. is going to be given some form of leeway over scheduling at ESPN, that he's going to be able to put his stuff where Around the Horn used to be. And at the game on Friday, LeBron finally courtside while Stephen A. is sitting with Ari Emanuel and Larry David, because he's climbed to a cartoon stratosphere where he's with the really famous people. And it's good for Stephen A.'s business to have LeBron confront him courtside. But I want to talk about the acting in some of this, because the sound that we played on Stephen A. was even worse than that the first time we played, because it was 3 minutes and we cut it down. But here is LeBron James talking to Richard Jefferson. I thought Richard Jefferson was security, not Richard Jefferson, because I'm just looking at it from the back.
The little earpiece, he does kind of look like a Secret Service guy.
Yeah, I thought he was complaining to security about Stephen A., but he's complaining to Richard Jefferson, a colleague of Stephen A., about this. The sound's not great, and he's covering his mouth as he learned to do down here with Dwayne Wade, but people could pick up that he's saying that the part that he's objecting to, I'm pleading with you as a father, that's the line. What's the line on personal? Tell me, when your son is a professional athlete and you're the most famous athlete in America, what's the line as a father?
I think there is no line. I think everybody in this case is right. Stephen A. Smith has every right to criticize and say what he did, not thinking that Bronny James is ever going to amount to anything. I mean, it's harsh, but if it's his truth, he's allowed to say it. It's his job to say it. I think LeBron James is perfectly entitled to get his back up because it's so personal. And I would feel the same if the role was involving myself and Christopher. I also think Bronny James is perfectly entitled to give basketball his best shot despite his father. We're going to see the same thing with Tiger Woods' kid in a couple of years as he advances in golf. People are going to write and say he's never going to beat Tiger Woods. The kid's still allowed to give it his shot.
Agreed that you have these freedoms, but I would like to have some lines here around something that has no precedent. This is not something any of us have ever seen a son getting a shortcut to the league when he's the son of the greatest athlete in the sport and the greatest athlete economy in the sport. And we've been making content off of this family for 20 years. It continues to provide, as LeBron is the oldest player in the league. And I'm not a father, so I don't know how emotional this would make me. But I believe that doesn't cross the line. It's theatrical. It's what's being rewarded now in media. Where can you find the confrontation? Turn up your true feelings wherever they are that are at a 5. Turn them up to 10. And the confrontation courtside isn't something that Stephen A. Smith minds. In fact, he understands it. He understands why a father would go after him on that. But once his son signs professionally, I don't know what the rules are supposed to be. I legitimately don't have an understanding of where it is that you can put the line when Stephen A. Smith is saying on the front end, he's offering all the respect on the front end that softens the criticism, but then he just says flatly that this is nepotism. This is a child who does not belong in the sport. He's not even treating Bronny like an adult or a professional. He's treating him like a child that doesn't belong.
And it's up to Bronny to prove him wrong, right? I mean, it's up to Bronny to prove him wrong. That's why I get the feeling of all three principals in this matter. I don't think Stephen A's wrong. I don't think LeBron's wrong for getting his back up either because he's talking as a father, not as a teammate.
He's also made this a lot harder for Bronny than he has to while making it easier for Bronny than most people have, right? Because, like, everything around Bronny getting to the NBA was kind of like, okay, like, this isn't normal. Like, saying, hey, you know what, if the Lakers or if any other team drafts Bronny, he's going to go play in Australia. Like, that's not normal for someone who is in Bronny's position, right? And he goes and he plays in the first game of the year and they have the cool moment. Like, it's okay for LeBron to be mad, but it's also okay for LeBron to be wrong about being mad about this situation because Bronny is a professional and he's not being targeted, I don't think. He's only being targeted in the sense that if someone else is in Bronny's position, we wouldn't be talking about that person at all. Like, not at all. The only reason they're talking about it is because it's Bronny's son, but also because LeBron keeps kind of putting him out there saying, there's no player that's better than Bronny that I'm seeing in the NBA right now. And having him partially be in the G League sometimes, then sometimes in the NBA when the G League is traveling. And, like, it's just a weird arrangement. And I think in the clips that, I mean, we haven't seen all of the Stephen A. clips, but in the clips that have been out there, Stephen A. said as much as, you know, I think that he should go to the G League and he should develop into an NBA player. I'm not saying that he's not going to be at some point in time. He's just not right now, which isn't crazy criticism, but, like, you understand why LeBron would get sensitive about that, but also he's wrong. Let's not forget they are the highest scoring father-son duo in NBA history. I just feel like that should be said.
Yeah, I love doing that to Hank and Tommy Aaron, the most home runs hit among brothers. So wait, let's examine what it is that Billy's saying there, because he's saying LeBron's wrong, but I don't think that fathers think that other fathers are wrong in the spaces where the soft emotional stuff
I'm a father.
is.
I said he's wrong.
The father thing is so friggin' flimsy to me. Everything that Billy said, like, when Stephen A. decided to do this, the timing was so goddamn weird because it was when Bronny was in the G League and actually playing well. Like, he just rehashed something out of nowhere, and he's like, as a father, I implore you, and all of this is made for TV. It's just dumb.
Okay, you say that, but made for TV dumb represents what percentage these days of sports content when the games aren't being played? Anybody got any theories on
Well,
what?
I know I would like to cede my time over to Jess. I know you pose this just to fathers, but, like, this is a really dumb thing, and I'm kind of angry at our show for leading the show with this really dumb thing. I'm a father of a daughter, but she's a dog, and also I'm a mother of her. But
that doesn't make you a father or a mother.
Then I'll wait until the next segment.
Okay.
I would like Jess's opinion.
Well, she doesn't want to give it, and I can't force her to give it.
Very progressive of you.
Mike
Well, you know,
can't
you
force her
didn't want to
give
give it to me.
gambit
You
was
said when the show
dads.
started, you want to hear from all the dads, which is literally everyone except me. So I'm gonna wait until that's no longer.
And me.
Well, Dan gave his opinions.
I disagree with Mike. I think it's a very valid conversation to have. I think it interests a lot of people, fathers and non-fathers, parents and non-parents. And the rule of thumb with athletes, right, is always my family's off limits. Okay, criticize me all you want, but don't bring my family into your whole media circus.
Not when they're on the roster.
Well, that's the
But
thing.
this is
That's where the
different.
line
That's my point.
changes.
He's more than just family. He's a teammate. He's trying to be an NBA player. He's volunteered to follow in the biggest footsteps in sports. So it's way beyond family, LeBron.
It's funny, though, that we can all acknowledge, wow, that was a shortcut to get to the NBA, obviously. But then upon arrival, it's a little bit harder for him than it is for most because of everything that surrounds him.
Well, the thing that's dumb about it, right, is that like the NBA is full of fringe players as like the last person on the roster who just don't get playing time and basically just sit on the bench all the time, right? And like that's fine if the Lakers want that to be Bronny's role, but you're really costing him development. Like, if you actually are taking him seriously as an NBA prospect, an NBA player, it suits him better to actually get legitimate playing time in the G League than just being a fringe player that plays in blowouts or sits on the bench for the Lakers just so he can be on the team with his dad and he can check in and they can have that cool fabricated moment every once in a while. Like, if you want him to actually develop LeBron, it's better for him to play and develop than be a meaningless player on this team.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Develop what? Because
His
if it's,
game.
But if it's just basketball, fine. But if it's the business of being a James and be around,
That's not a thing.
Well,
like, that's not a real thing.
Kids follow around their dads in employment all of the time to learn the business.
But Daddy's going to be done in 2 years, and then what? Like, if he wants to be his own man and he wants to be in the league, he should develop as a player. And there's stories of players who go and develop in the G League and then come out and are productive NBA players. He's wasting time, honestly, of development if he's just sitting on the roster for them to continue to have these moments. Look how cool it is they're on the floor together.
He's bound to fail, right? Bronny is, and he must know it more acutely than anyone does. 2 years from now, he may be playing on a team in China. It doesn't mean he's a failure. He's only a failure relative to the impossible footsteps of his father. If Bronny James is in business school right now, studying to be a CPA.
He is in business school right now.
If he's studying to be a CPA and wants nothing to do with basketball, it's not like Stephen A. Smith is criticizing him then by saying he's afraid of the footsteps. He should be in the NBA. No, he's in the NBA or trying to be, so it's valid criticism.
Mike is not wrong when he looks at all of this and says after 20 years of LeBron coverage, really? OKC beats Denver by 20 yesterday. Cleveland is in the middle of its third more than 12-game winning streak of the season. And I think we would all acknowledge that a Cleveland-OKC final is a disaster for the sport, even though those are the two best teams.
I mean, don't get me wrong. As a father, I also don't want to talk about Oklahoma City, Cleveland matching up in the NBA final. I think the most interesting thing that's happening in the sport is still like the ramifications of the Luka trade, what it's done to the Dallas market, how they've totally unraveled there. I think that's like an interesting drama, and LeBron is a part of that. This one just seems entirely manufactured from the timing. I think we all know what this is. If you wanted to keep LeBron James in purple and gold, part of the deal was you were going to pay his son $8 million and try to develop him in your franchise, and everything else around it is just BS.
We will get to what is happening in Dallas in a second. Dallas yesterday finished the game with 7 healthy players. Started with 9, finished with 7. It's been an unmitigated disaster in Dallas. But this back and forth yesterday, because there are other things happening in basketball. Golden State is 11-1 when Jimmy Butler plays. Can you give me the stat of the day here real quick? Speaking of Golden State, if you could just play the short version of the stat of the day real quick.
Start of the day, start of the day, it is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is the start of the day.
Stat of the day is presented by Miller Lite.
Steph Curry has not lost at Madison Square Garden in about 4,400 days. It was 4,388 about 12 days ago, but I don't know if it was exactly 12 days ago. So it's about 4,400 straight days. And if you're looking for more NBA drama, Skip Bayless says, quote, "The more I watch him at age 36, the more KD looks mentally semi-retired to me." To which Kevin Durant responds, "Bleep it. We're both washed, Skip. It was a great run." Perfect.
Was a good run.
Perfect
both.
response to that. Let's play some free Nico chants that are breaking out all over Dallas.
Well, fire Nico.
I'm sorry. Fire Nico. That free Nico is totally different. Yeah. Fire Nico. Let's play some of those.
He may feel like it's a freedom of sorts.
This is that FC Dallas game.
How much of this do we have? Because basically, at this point, Nico exists as a name only to be two syllables in chants.
Now we go over to medieval times in Dallas, where they were also chanting Fire Nico.
Are they jousting? Is there a joust? Come on, medieval times can't still be doing well.
Big year last year.
It's medieval time. That doesn't look like it's doing that well from the crowd there. What are they preparing? Are they waiting for a joust? Is that what they're waiting
this
for?
This seems pre-joust.
I want to ask you guys a serious question, okay? Because we laughed about the idea of trading Luka because of beer and hookah. But I want to ask you guys seriously. If you have to make a $300 million investment in a 25-year-old, where's your line on too much beer and hookah? Like if it's your money and you've got to make sure that that body is still right at 34, the way that it was at 24, what's too much beer and hookah if that's the reason that they traded him? What's the amount that I have to put in front of you where I say you've got a 25-year-old superstar, but you're willing to trade him and make your fan base, your customers, really angry on the loyalty front because you're going to tell them, I'm afraid of his beer and hookah habit?
Me, I want a happy player who I trust to perform and to be in shape enough to perform. I'm not gonna make him go on a scale once a week so that he doesn't gain 3 pounds. If he's performing on the court, do your thing. That's why we're.
But what
paying
about
the
the investment going forward, though? Because there are any number of players in there. I remember the Marlins had this fear with Miguel Cabrera because he would show up at photo shoots.
They were wrong.
Yeah, they were wrong. He would show up at photo shoots and he would, have too much to drink, and they were worried about how it is that would age, and they didn't have to worry about it until he got into his late 30s. But if it's a concern that's expressed in the fitness arena, and if Luka has if we're willing, all of us as people with, Cheeto dust on our fingers watching the games to say, hey, Luka's body at 25 doesn't look like he's taking care of it though, as scientifically as a professional athlete in the modern age would.
Okay, but if you're worried about Luka staying on the court, why did you trade for Anthony Davis?
Fair enough. Mark Cuban said he would be having a different conversation. He said they got too little. First public comments from Mark Cuban. Says they got too little, and if it had been exactly what they got, plus 4 unconditional first-round picks, then people would have been having a different conversation around this. They did not make something that was better for their future anywhere except creating salary cap space.
Helpful, Mark Cuban. Yes, if they got a much better deal in return, fewer people would be upset. Wholeheartedly agree.
How does he still exist in this world where he sold the team, but he's we're still craving his thoughts and opinions?
These are late though. These are rivals.
Well, because everyone also publicly is saying, "Hey, Mark, shut up, stop talking." Everywhere he's trying to help someone talk, they're like, "Oh, Mark, a little less talking, please."
I'm sure that's part of the agreement, don't you think? Part of the agreement for the sale is like, I'm not going to be in the public space. It's kind of like when historically a president leaves office, they kind of disappear for a little bit and respect the transition of power, and they don't pop up because they know what that job's like, and it's a courteous thing to do.
I have not heard a whole lot of George Bush's opinions on how it is that he feels about
He
Donald
just
Trump.
came out of hiding. He literally just put something out from his presidential library about Ukraine specifically. And, I mean, you can do some digging and know exactly where the Bush family sides by their absence at stuff and whatnot. There were a lot of legacy Republicans that weren't at the RNC. Amazing way to make this political, but I think I'm the one to blame there. But, like, even he came out for the Russia-Ukraine thing. But historically, people that share that office kind of just go off into the distance and don't often offer up criticisms of whoever just replaced them.
That's an ego thing by them, right? Because, like, who wakes up in 2025 and says, you know what, I really wonder what George Bush thinks about this issue.
Well, in this one I can understand.
I mean, Bush did not endorse the Republican candidate in the last election, which is in and of itself is a pretty jarring statement. But getting back to Luka for just a minute, the time to worry about his health habits and his future conditioning is when you're negotiating the contract and signing him. It's not after you lavish him with this deal and then you're second guessing. Hey, you look a little chubby, Luka. Well, they
didn't lavish him with the biggest of the deals, though. The Supermax deal is the one that was on the table. Like they didn't the deal they had him under was relatively at value.
But my point is, when you negotiate any contract, especially a bigger one, that's what you put into the contract. You can't go skydiving. Please don't ride a motorcycle. You know, stay healthy. Do this. Do
You can't
that.
say anything about beer and hookah, though.
Sure, you can.
You can't.
You can negotiate anything in a contract.
You can't. Not a collectively bargained contract. You can't control how much or when someone is drinking. You can have some of their freedoms where there are liabilities, where there are dangers. You can't negotiate beer or absence of beer into a contract.
What are we doing with hookah? Is it because like it's got a long cord to it, so it maybe signifies that someone appears lazier when they're doing it? Because I would have more of an issue with cigarettes than with a hookah.
Okay, what I'm doing with hookah is just general late night snacking. I'm just if you're into the beer and the hookah, then you're probably eating snacks at midnight that aren't clean salmon protein.
I don't think it gives you munchies.
I'm not saying munchies. I'm just saying late night habits. I'm not even talking about there's some sort of link between hookah and snacks. I'm talking about there's link between hookah and beer and midnight and snacks.
I think you're doing general body posture when you're smoking a hookah. It's just often people lean back and they're just very cash about it, as opposed to someone standing upright just taking a big rip off a dart.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. If someone is dabbling in beer and hookah at midnight, do you assume they're also snacking? Yes or no?
I thought hookah was like a taboo thing for teenagers. Like, there's full-grown adults that are smoking hookahs.
Yeah, there's hookah bars. I don't have an issue with it. But, yeah, it does give off a little Snorlax type of vibe more than cigarettes does.
You guys are, I'm sorry, but you guys are doing something here that I'm not doing. This is all about the general vibes around hookah. The area rug that's there when you go inside.
That's what I'm assuming you're doing.
Yes.
Sultany.
I'm just
Go on and say it.
The
reminds you of a sultan.
A sloppy.
And there aren't many skinny sultans.
A sloppy sultan who doesn't have a lot of discipline in his life, or a lot of people who tell him not to snack at midnight.
You just love that hookah rhymes with Luka.
I do love that.
That's
yes.
where it begins.
You don't have many players throughout.
Hookah Doncic.
You don't have many players throughout basketball history that rhyme this perfectly with hookah. You got an NFL wide receiver named Puka, but you don't have a lot of options here when it comes to rhyming with hookah. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the aforementioned Cleveland Cavaliers, are retiring Kevin Love's 0.
Wow.
They're retiring Kevin Love's number. They made that so miserable for him while he was there. He was so unhappy while he was there, except when they were holding up the trophy. He had no idea what he was signing up for. He was enjoying being the league's leading rebounder, being the leading scorer on the 8th-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. He gets traded to Cleveland, and now his legacy is secure in Cleveland. His number 0 is going to be retired forever.
I think I know I was guilty of it. I was doing the direct comparison to how bad I felt the Heat got it. and all the supporting cast of characters, like Bosh had it way more difficult than Kevin Love ever did. He had a relatively charmed existence when compared directly to Chris Bosh. However, in a vacuum, it didn't seem fun. Didn't seem fun for Kevin Love. Having to be subtweeted occasionally by LeBron James, whoever's running Kevin's socials still seems to remember that.
They're probably retiring his jersey now because they're afraid of what the person running his social is going to say soon, and they're not going to be able to retire in like a year. Why are they retiring while he's active? That's weird, right? Like on another team.
They're trying to get LeBron back. That's why they did the whole like Zydrunas Ilgauskas thing. Like you're retiring this jersey just because you want LeBron in the barn.
I'd be more hesitant to retire my 0. Well, maybe I should be less hesitant to retire my 0 because so few players are going to want the 0. I would think that the 0 is something that you'd want to protect more than the other numbers, but maybe I have that wrong. There aren't that many 0s in the history of basketball.
Why wouldn't they do this for? It's actually gained popularity. Gilbert Arenas was huge for that number. I think you'll look at most rosters and find 0s. It's become in vogue. But, I think that if they're retiring any active players, why don't they retire LeBron's?
Too many numbers being retired in sports. I really believe that. And I think basketball's a bigger culprit than most sports. I'm looking at the career record of Kevin Love. He made 2 All-Star teams with Cleveland. His best years were with Minnesota. I just don't see that he's an all-time great for the Cavaliers. I really don't.
Dude, he won a championship. And remember, he was actually playing lockdown defense at the end for Steph Curry. Key contributor on a championship team with Hall of Fame in his future. That guy's getting his jersey retired.
I don't tend to tell regional entities that have a personal relationship with their athletes when they should or shouldn't retire someone's number or should or shouldn't put up a statue. I'm not particularly interested in policing any of those things. I did just notice that Kevin Love seems to be on the line where some people like Greg would say that's a bridge too far. I just don't think that when in your town you have Udonis Haslem, thank you, Billy, that you can say anything to anybody else about what a personal relationship is with an athlete, because I think Udonis might be on the cusp of getting a statue, not just a number retired.
Yeah, that might be a bridge too far, as you called it. But
is that a report?
Udonis, he's career leader across some very important stats for what has become since its inception, a storied NBA franchise in Miami. You can understand that. I can certainly understand Kevin Love. How long was he in Cleveland for? 6 seasons? He made it to an All-Star game twice in that uniform, won an NBA championship, was the third most important player. Yeah, I get it, but they also had 2 pretty great ones on their team. That's an easy jersey retirement.
Yeah, 8 seasons, 2 All-Star games. To me, that's not jersey retirement. In the case of UD, that's the father of Heat culture. That's the embodiment of Heat culture, and Heat culture has become such a brand with this franchise that you've got to honor the guy who you think
the rest of the country would laugh at the idea of Udonis being respected that way.
Well, tough shit for the rest of the country. He's also the all-time rebounding leader, I believe.
He is,
and so that's not nothing.
Is there a way to raise? Is there a way to raise the culture to the rafters?
No.
What would we raise?
Just Udonis. Just put him. Put him in the rafters.
String
just
him up.
sit. No, we're not gonna. We're just gonna sit him up.
No,
there.
Greg.
Right.
There will
Dan
be
brought us here.
There will be no stringing of
Well,
anybody
you put a
up.
rope under his arm.
No. We're fine.
I blame Dan for this.
Greg, you know what I was thinking would be more meaningful? Instead of retiring the number 0, what if the Cavs just said, you know what? We're retiring Love. We will never have another player named Love on our team. And you just start retiring last names. So no one with that name can ever play for your team again because that's how meaningful they were.
After Dan Gilbert's letter, they should have retired Hate. They should have just we put that letter in the rafters and retire Hate forevermore in Cleveland, the way that they retired Unity in Kansas City when they started their Super Bowl run. Can we get some of Billy's calls from the weekend? Because I was told that Billy made another secret foray with very little fanfare, very little publicity into calling FIU baseball, and I'm told that we not only have a 2-minute montage on all Billy things being just maximum Billy, but we also have, and Greg Cody was sent this, but he couldn't access it because yet he sent it to him. He couldn't actually hear what was a legendary home run call during the FIU-FAU game that we'll get to after the 2-minute montage here of Billy just being maximum Billy.
Not an ideal start. I don't know what I just said. LaPointe's not a threat to run at second base. If I'm Rundy, if I'm FIU, I just pay him no mind, even if he's dancing off second base. Just go right after LaRue here. They're not even covering second, so.
They understand the assignment from Billy Gill. And it's ball 1 here from Rundy.
Must be blasting through the speakers today, you know?
These guys do hear what we say.
Oh, no.
They go back and listen to the broadcast. Both teams do.
Uh-oh.
So bear that in mind.
You guys are all trying your best.
Amazing how the tone switches. He goes from the guy's not a threat to run to, wow, tremendous effort.
Yeah.
The little thing called accountability.
Good double, Dylan. No betting.
The mathematics of 3 more than 1, but no betting.
Yeah, on baseball. Pete Rose learned that the hard way, Corey.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever. Payoff pitch. Ildy goes after it. Littman's got back-to-back Ks.
Crowd roaring.
He's going to get pardoned or whatever. Kindness, I think, was appropriate.
You can dive in more if you want.
I think you nailed it. Pardoned or whatever.
Last week we were talking about the new FIU Vice hat.
Okay, that's different.
Which carried over to the midweek game where we had a conversation about the Vice hat.
Mm-hmm.
Ball 1. So in reality,
okay,
we're discussing caps probably about half the games to this point in the year.
Yeah. And that's no cap.
What's that mean?
You know what, Corey, if you don't know.
Yes? I'm just old?
I'm not going to tell you.
It's all right. Fortunately, I do know what cap means.
Do you?
I do. Cap, Riz, skibbity toilet.
What?
Knocked down by Andrews. A little PFP work right out of the gate. 1 pitch, 1 out. Andrews helping it himself.
Well, PFPI gala, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
We will get to this home run call involving a legend in a moment, but I just want to play the astute and expansive elaboration from Billy, who decides this is the time he's going to be efficient instead of yammering and wordy when asked or bringing up the pardon of Pete Rose.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever.
That's good commentary from Billy entering the political waters with excellent color commentary. Play that the whole thing again so that the play-by-play man could see and hear how little support he has from his color man here.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever.
Chris, how do you feel about this home run call that your father has not yet heard?
I love it. I mean, it's nice to, like, whenever you have, like, FAU here, in the home run call, they pay respect to an FAU legend, and it's just cool to see that they can do that type of thing.
Focus.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing, and Florida Atlantic, a power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
That whole thing is such a pathetic home run call. There's no crowd noise. There's Billy setting up and selling the Greg Cody home run call. Let me hear the whole thing again.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing, and Florida Atlantic, a power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
Oh, that's great.
You did call him a foul out on the prowl earlier, too.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a big day for you yesterday,
I'm
Greg.
telling you what, that goes right on my tombstone.
What?
It does?
Yeah.
You've said that over the course of the last few years about 3 dozen
It's
things.
a crowded
Yeah.
tombstone.
Your tombstone.
Well, hold on a second. For the record, let's mark up your tombstone right now, just so that, worst case scenario, we don't botch this. What would you like it to say?
I guess the lead would have to be 8-time PFPI champion.
Okay.
For now.
Where's I eat butt all the time?
Maybe the back of the tombstone,
Hell yeah.
near the dirt.
Yeah, that's a good place for it.
I wasn't even thinking of those terms.
You weren't, were
No,
you?
that kind of thing.
Okay, excellent.
That kind of life.
Yeah.
You heard mentioned on there the Miami Vice hats, which brings up some new hats that are now out of stock all over the internet. This Texas baseball cap that replaces the X with a T. For tetas, the Spanish word, the strongest and most offensive of the Spanish words for boobs, because I don't think the other word I can't say. It's one of the 7 words you're not allowed to say on broadcast, evidently. I can't. Can I say that?
That still exists, those 7
Let's
words?
just not. Let's not.
Yeah,
I say roll the dice.
Don't take his advice. But I also don't know what you're talking about. I don't either. So I'm partly.
That's why I'm curious. We
do
can
me a
bleep
favor.
it. I just
Write
want
it
to
down
learn.
on an index card and just slide it over to me.
I mean, 4 letters and 2 T's like tetas, except in English.
Yeah, just whisper it, and that way it won't be as
Yeah,
bad.
let's look at
yeah,
the.
you can say that.
Let's look at the pioneering hat that created the tetas hat, which is this A's hat that is also a great hat that just adds an S to the A's hat and makes it ass, so that now we have 2 hats that are T and A.
This was a part of a whole new design for New Era, where they would take one of the logos and just slap it in the middle of a script logo. And for some teams, it works kind of cool. Like Chicago is all right. Cincinnati makes some sense. But some teams like the Mariners are unfortunate because you just have a hat that says Masters on it. There's also an Angels hat that kind of looks really close to anals. But the best one, and the one that has certainly already received quite a bit of fanfare and is now out of stock, is tetas.
You've tried to get it?
Yeah, I tried to purchase it because that's a hilarious hat, and someone clearly didn't know what they were doing. You got to have someone bilingual across that. You have a hat that says boobs, essentially, which is going to be mad popular, and it already has been. But some of these designs, the quality control really makes you think.
Chris, play that home run call again, please.
Or your U2 volume slider. First pitch swinging. Driven to center. With pace. The foul owl on the prowl, John Schroeder.
Yeah.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing in Florida Atlantic. A power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
Greetings to all. Welcome to 2022. Omicron is on the run, and away it went. But oops, there goes gravity, and here comes a new variant. Omaha, Corona, Hut 1, Hut 2, nothing infects the Super Bowl, and nothing stops football.
racism, greed, trauma to brain and spine. And yet, I cannot look away. Heroes are dead. Science has their heads. Oh, is there no escape from here? I need to know. It eats my soul. Nothing stops the NFL. Is this heaven or hell? I can't tell. It's human cockfighting. CTE, prayer circles. They blackballed the black baller. They tried to end racism by stenciling it in the end zone. Billionaire boys using millionaires as toys. It's all immoral, all unethical. Ooh, the witching hour. Nothing stops the NFL. Is this heaven or hell?
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
We will check in with Roy from the Panthers press conference. Marchand has been introduced. He's wearing the red. He says it brings out the color in his eyes. He will be on the road trip with the Panthers as it begins in Boston, where he will say hello to his ex-teammates. And that one's going to be something that hurts Boston fans.
That's logistically stupid, right? Make him come down here for a press conference just to go right back to Boston? What did we do that for? Just wait.
That's a good point. It's not like he's playing right now.
Why did he fly down here?
What's the hurry?
They could have just introduced him in Boston.
I mean, he's on the team now. I'm sure he's looking for an apartment around here. The idea that he's just going to stay up there for 3 weeks.
Want to delay practice. You want to delay onboarding with a new franchise.
You'll get it.
I mean, I don't want him playing regardless, so go for it.
I want to talk to you guys about some of the movement in football over the weekend. DK Metcalf requested a trade in Seattle. The Gino Smith era in Seattle as he gets traded to the Raiders, and the Raiders say we want stability at coach and quarterback, and so we're going to get Gino Smith and Pete Carroll. I think I can argue that Gino Smith is a top 10 quarterback. It's a bit of a rhetorical trick. At one point, I said that Rex Grossman was one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL because he slid in at number 10 when he was making it to the Super Bowl. Gino Smith was unlucky in a couple of fronts. He turned the ball over more than he should have, according to the metrics. He had 15 interceptions, but he was unlucky. He was pretty good with the football, and pretty good with the football even though that offensive line is bad. I don't think in Las Vegas with Bowers that they have the skill guys that Seattle had. But I ask you guys what you make of Gino Smith and the Gino Smith era in Seattle. Do you guys remember anything? Did that era win a playoff game? He could throw for 4,000 yards. He was better than any of us thought he would ever be. And I can make the argument that he fits in the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. You made a face.
Yeah, I don't think anybody other than you is calling Gino Smith a top 10 quarterback.
It's a rhetorical trick. Once you get into 8, 9, and 10, you're talking about interchangeable pieces.
Okay, I'm looking at an NFL.com ranking here. They do have him 12, which is higher than I would have him. Like you say, he's a turnover guy. 15 interceptions, way a lot, and no matter what the metrics say, that's still a lot of turnovers.
Well, wait a minute, though. The metrics do require some examination because he's got as many interceptions. Cousins and Baker had more, but his offensive line was bad. And I want to do the assessment on DK Metcalf. What's Pittsburgh doing here? Are they going to keep Metcalf and Pickens? Are they going to keep Metcalf and Pickens? And now what's this sourcing that has Aaron Rodgers as somebody in Pittsburgh that is being linked to Pittsburgh? I thought when they got DK Metcalf, I was of the opinion that they were doing that for Russell Wilson. That signaled to me that there was going to be something between Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. How do DK Metcalf and Pickens fit together?
What are we doing there with that? That's just they have two good receivers now. They had one, and now they have two. They were doing that in the other room. They're the same guy. It's like, yeah, they're both good.
They're going to find a quarterback.
They're not the same guy. And Pickens, I don't know. Pickens is unusual, and there seemed to be issues with him in Pittsburgh in the locker room. And it made it seem to me like Pickens wasn't going to be there very much longer, independent of DK Metcalf.
Well, I'm not a father, but I can tell you it's possible they could trade George Pickens and get that second-round pick back. But this was a desperate need for the Steelers last season. They really needed more bodies at the wide receiver position. They tried to trade for Mike Williams, and they got a couple touchdowns out of him, but it wasn't like it didn't change anything. And then when Pickens was hurt, the offense completely fell apart. They really didn't have any downfield threats for Russell Wilson. So this is something that I think the Steelers needed to do, but there's still obviously a question of who is going to actually be their quarterback now, because it could be Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like it still could be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, but maybe leans more towards Russell Wilson of the two of them. It could be like a fourth option. It could be Sam Darnold. It just... Maybe they should have looked harder at Stafford. There's no really great options right now for teams like Pittsburgh and Seattle who are going to need quarterbacks for next season, because this is a pretty weak quarterback draft, and free agency is not – a lot of these teams don't want to pay these players the contracts that they're about to earn because they're just not that great.
Do we believe this Aaron Rodgers interest popping up a lot of places? Feels like spin from an agent. Just trying to keep his name in there.
It's interesting how it's being reported, because it's just like Schefter constantly opening up the door like, hey, they're talking about him. And that's kind of the reporting that we get on it, which was kind of what happened this morning, which is as they still try to have conversations with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, another name that's being invoked is Aaron Rodgers. And that's kind of how the reporting is being done. That Aaron always seems like someone's like plan B, plan C.
For the Steelers, it also what is Russ's number? Because it's not $1 million a year, which is what they had him for last year, right? So, now that they've given DK $30 million, how much are you going to give to the quarterback? Are you going to draft a quarterback, or are you going to get, a middle-level quarterback? You have Fields that you could get probably for cheaper than you can get Russ at this point. And, the Aaron Rodgers thing, I mean, any team that has a quarterback need now that's looking for an established quarterback, even though he didn't have a great season last year, is better than, gambling on a
Kirk Cousins,
Daniel Jones, maybe.
Right, I agree. Aaron Rodgers, the second half of last season, was really good. If you look at his second half numbers, he was Pro Bowl quality just in the second half. But he got so much heat for not lifting the Jets, and that's rightful heat. But still, he's got something left. I would much rather have Aaron Rodgers. I'm surprised the Raiders didn't sign him. And I would rather have Aaron Rodgers than Geno Smith as my starting quarterback.
But he's a stopgap, right? You're just getting him for basically next season and then working. If you're close enough and you need a serviceable quarterback, you take a chance on Aaron Rodgers. Or if you're a terrible team that just wants to make a splashy move, you get Aaron Rodgers.
But I feel like we all have Aaron Rodgers amnesia for some reason.
Yeah.
The reason the Jets were bad the first half this season was also because of Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, cool. They turned things around for the last 5 meaningless games of the season, but do we not remember the whole thing for the last 2 years? I understand why a team wouldn't want to sign him.
The Vikings make sense in that J.J. McCarthy missed all of last season with an injury, so you still don't really know what you have in J.J. McCarthy. So, if he is still your plan going forward, you bring in Aaron Rodgers for a season to get you to JJ, because JJ, after sitting out a season, probably isn't ready to be your starter. And I don't think that you're ready to commit to Sam Darnold long term, which is probably what Sam Darnold is looking for this offseason.
Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be a backup.
No, he's not going to be a backup. That's what we're saying. He's going to be a starter.
I'm
for
saying
one
J.J.
of these.
McCarthy is their future there, so much so that they're willing to let go of a Sam Darnold who performed well with those skill guys, and who I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be going anywhere where he's not allowed to be the starter. But the thing I wanted to talk to you about that I always have difficulties untangling, and I remember the first time I had difficulties untangling it. The Dallas Cowboys, champion Dallas Cowboys, had Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper. Both of them thought they were number one receivers. Alvin Harper was a number two receiver. Alvin Harper became a number one receiver for Tampa and wasn't as good in Tampa because he didn't have Michael Irvin. DK Metcalf, the last couple of seasons, and I asked the audience this, do you consider him, not in body type and looks, a number one receiver? Do you consider him in production a number one receiver? Because the last couple of seasons, he's got like 60 catches a season. And that's generally not what I associate with a number one receiver. Now, there are a couple of franchises, and only a couple, that now have the benefit that Belichick used to have whenever he added Ocho Cinco and Albert Haynesworth, and people said, well, he must know something. He's great. He's going to get something out of him, and then he didn't. Devontae Adams goes to the Rams, and all of us are like, that's gonna be something with the Rams. Like, whatever it hasn't been the last couple of years, I think that's going to be something with the Rams. DK Metcalf is what? When I present him to you and say, who's more likely to be a real number one the way that you expect them to be a number one this year and going forward? Pickens or DK Metcalf? Because there's going to be a pecking order in Pittsburgh, and then you get into the A.J. Brown situation in Philadelphia where he's a number one, he knows he's a number one, and the moment he stops being a number one, he starts getting mad about things.
I think DK Metcalf is a legitimate number one receiver. At his size, 6'4", with his speed, I think he's a number one. He's got 48 career touchdowns in 5 or 6 years. He's 27. He's in his prime. Receivers, he's got another good few years.
You associate 66 catches with a number one receiver? 60, because what he does is he's not always open. He gets you some touchdowns, but 66 catches is that's not a high usage rate. That's a guy who's getting shut down in some games, and the number ones in this league don't really get shut down.
They also have 3 good receivers that they spread the wealth to with Lockett and JSN. So I think that DK Metcalf, I am a little worried. Big-bodied wide receivers historically drop off a little bit earlier, but they have 2 good wide receivers. I think what a lot of people are doing is they have the same jersey number. How's that going to work out between Pickens and DK Metcalf?
That is a good question. Who is going to wear 14 next season?
Pickens,
if
right?
they're both on the Steelers.
I mean, you're the new guy. You got to get a new number. I eat.
But if you're the guy that just signed the huge contract, are you going to pay for the number?
Money
Do like a
talks,
little
as we learned with Myles
deal?
Garrett.
Can you guys find any images that suggest that DK Metcalf already has a lot of jewelry with number 14 on it and is going to pay a good deal of money in order to have that number so that he could either keep his jewelry or sell it to George Pickens?
To answer the original question, I think Gino Smith is a top 4 quarterback in Seahawks history. And he's borderline jersey retirement guy. And if he were around when they had some of their better teams, they would have had the same number of Super Bowl wins at the very least. Gino Smith.
Wait, what? We're doing Hasselbeck. We're doing Wilson. Who's the third?
I think you go Craig.
Jim Zorn.
Zorn over Craig?
I mean, the numbers are so different. I'm guessing Jim Zorn threw 1 million interceptions at a time when people threw 1 million interceptions, and so he probably doesn't age very well.
In terms of passing yardage for that franchise, Geno Smith is 5th. Last year, in terms of passing yardage, Geno Smith was 4th. I think it's a great deal for all parties. I think that they're not going to keep Geno Smith long-term in Seattle. They want to tether a franchise quarterback to this head coach. We're at the tail end of Geno Smith's career. For the Raiders, it's a great idea. No one was really thinking that Geno Smith was available. They missed out on Stafford. You have Brady kind of intertwined with their decisions there. You have Geno kind of hold it down for a year, maybe bring up a guy that you develop. It's a perfect trade, and you reunite him with a coach that he had some success with, and Pete Carroll.
DK Metcalf wore 14 in college. George Pickens at Georgia wore number 1. So Pickens could look back. Is there number 1 on the Steelers right now? Maybe he could switch to 1.
By the way, George Pickens in 3 seasons has 52, 63, and 59 catches. It's not like he's a 100-catch-a-year guy.
Oh, but
it's also a run-first offense that hasn't had a great quarterback for
But neither
years.
has Metcalf, you could argue.
To that point, I don't think either of them are going to be a 100-catch guy with the Steelers. They're not going to change their whole way of doing
But
business.
Geno Smith in 2022 was better than anything the Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger retired.
Greg's doing unfair things to Geno Smith when he's comparing him unfavorably to a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and he's doing so because of the history of Geno Smith more than he's doing than the recent Geno Smith. Like, he's going back 10 years on Geno Smith when he's getting punched by a teammate in the Jets locker room and whatever the numbers were back then. Geno Smith has reinvented himself almost entirely. But I asked the group and I asked the audience, did they win a playoff game with Geno Smith there? Because they may have, but I don't remember it.
I don't think so. I know that they gave San Francisco a run for their money at San Francisco in the playoffs, but I don't think they won a playoff game.
I think this is what we do with Geno Smith. We oversimplify this based on both his past and the fact that we associate quarterbacks with winning in a way that's not totally fair, given that there are a lot of things that go into winning. But Geno Smith, I feel like everyone listening to this knows that what you're going to get with Geno Smith is you're going to be a 500 team that's not going to win in the playoffs, no matter what team you put him on.
That's the Steelers also. Right. The number 1 jersey is retired in Pittsburgh, by the way. Has not been reissued in a long time.
Oh, who wore it?
Gary Anderson.
The kicker?
The kicker? The kicker?
The one with the one
Prolific.
face mask?
Yeah.
Like the one.
What?
The Gary.
I was talking about too many numbers being retired, man. Wow.
You were talking about that. Is Greg doing this unfairly with Geno Smith? Because I don't think Geno Smith has been able to erase with Greg what his reputation is, even though over the last 3 or 4 seasons, Geno Smith has been a wildly productive quarterback.
Yeah, but he still throws a lot of interceptions.
I'm aware that 2 or 3 years ago he had a big comeback season, okay? At this point in his career, for me, Geno Smith is a great veteran backup or a guy who you can trust to be your stopgap starter while you wait for J.J. McCarthy to bloom, something like that. I just don't see him as a guy you sign thinking, all right, we're solved now. We got 4 or 5 years of great quarterbacking. I just don't think he's that guy.
But he's also taking over a team that was 4-13 that didn't have a quarterback. So, like, even if he gets you to 500, that is a huge upgrade from where the Raiders were last season.
Okay, but Tom Brady knows better than anybody. Is that your answer? Is this a guy you're satisfied with?
I mean, maybe not long term, but like you just signed Max Crosby, who you're going to be building around, right? And he commanded a lot of money. Are you going to overtake the Chiefs in the AFC West? Probably not. You're probably playing for a wild card spot. If you get 9-10 wins, you can make the playoffs. Geno Smith can give you that.
I'd like to read you some things that I think run counter empirically to what it is Greg thinks he's right about here when he just looks at 15 interceptions and that is his assessment of Geno Smith. This is, and you don't tend to like this stuff from Pro Football Focus, but I'm just going to read it, okay, because it does a deeper dive on those turnovers than you're presently doing. Per Pro Football Focus, Smith had a league average turnover-worthy play rate of 2.6%. That tied him with Josh Allen, the league's MVP. Josh Allen was wildly efficient when it came to turnovers this year, and it puts him ahead of Tua, Jordan Love, Goff, Stafford, Darnold, and Hurts, all of whom had better offensive line play than Geno Smith. He ranks 14th in career dropbacks among active players, with 10 of the players above him having entered the league after him per True Media. It makes him harder to evaluate based on true talent level, but he did throw a lot of passes over his 3 seasons as Seattle's starter. Only Mahomes had more dropbacks over that span, and according to Pro Football Focus's grading, only 6 quarterbacks performed better than Geno Smith during that time. Their names are Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, and Tua.
Easy upgrade for their roster. Much better than Minshew, O'Connell, Ritter.
Well, that's true. I'll admit that.
They need to get the running game in order, but the sneaky thing about the Raiders is they had 2,000-yard receivers. Bowers and Jacoby Myers in 15 games also had more than 1,000 yards receiving this year. Just did it with very little fanfare because they weren't playing meaningful games.
I mean, why do you think Geno Smith went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 years in a row in his career without being a starting quarterback, starting 2 games in an 8-year period. I think you're talking like you're Gino Smith's agent, and stats can be maneuvered and jiggered and wiggled to say just about anything. You can look at Pro Football Focus. You can look at that kind of analytics and come up with any reason why any quarterback is
But, Greg,
great.
it's got more information than your opinion, which is just based on 5 years ago, like what you thought 5 years ago and hasn't changed. There's more empirical data in what – yes, you can make it say anything, but what I just made it say was pretty impressive.
But what you guys are arguing is Greg saying he's the 12th best quarterback, and you're saying he's the 10th. So what are we actually really arguing about?
Sports.
I mean, he's saying he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I'm saying at this point in his career, he's a great veteran backup. If you want a veteran backup as a safety net, and he's a guy that you're fine as a 1-year stopgap.
I think it's somewhere in the middle between both of you.
11.
So,
Historically, not something that you say about someone that's top 4 in passing yards in the league.
I was looking up, by the way, since you guys are talking about stats and how you can manipulate stats to tell you anything you want, because we were talking about Kevin Love earlier and retiring him and why they retire him. I found 3 Cleveland Cavaliers stats in which Kevin Love is the all-time leader. Defensive rebound percentage, defensive rebounds per 36 minutes, and defensive rebounds per 100 possessions. There you go. All-time great in 3 random stats.
There you go. Not even the best Love in NBA history. Bob Love, Chicago Bulls. Let's go.
Put them next to each other. Is Bob Love indeed better than Kevin Love? I don't know his career enough to know whether Bob Love is indeed better than Kevin Love.
Do we put this on the poll? Bob Love, Chicago Bulls, let's go. Yes or no?
Yes. Put that on the poll at Le Batard Show. And tell me all you know about Bob Love, because I really do believe that at this point, and I think you should be allowed at your age, you've settled so comfortably into your ignorance that there is no new information that I can give you that you wouldn't wave off with a hand because you already know better. And you're like, facts and stats and data and all of your proof otherwise, I dismiss it based on my gut feeling.
The easiest stat to dismiss is passing yards. You put any backup quarterback in the right offense with the right receivers, and he's going to pass for 4,000 yards.
But wait a minute. Let's just wait a minute. Okay, it's a hard position to play. There aren't many good ones. What would Gino Smith have to do? What would I have to present to you to change your mind that's already formed and hardened about what Gino Smith is, what you think him to be, when what he's been in this league has been somebody statistically? I still maintain, if you can get the sound of how accurate this was, I think it's got to be the most amazing prediction in the history of our show, where Amin, before a season started, when everyone's opinion was what yours is of Gino Smith, Amin El-Hassan, our basketball expert, gave us a prediction on what it is that Gino Smith would do that season, and those statistics that he predicted that we all thought were outlandish were good enough, Greg, that you would want it to be your quarterback for all but 5 or 6 of the teams in the league, because we will put next to the prediction, we will get you the actual stats.
I cannot believe that an NFL team in 2022 is entering the year with Geno Smith as their quarterback.
Scorching hot take. We'll see Drew Lock this season. Yeah.
Of course. We'll see a third. We'll see a third quarterback. We'll see them be linked with every, like, Jimmy Garoppolo's going to get waived. He might go there. Like, I just can't fathom. I can't fathom that an NFL team decided after 8 months of, like, being able to plan for a draft, for free agency, for quarterbacks coming available via trade, they're like, you know what we're going to do? Geno Smith.
I submit to you 4,000 yards for Geno Smith.
Impossible.
30
Impossible.
30 tutties, 11 INTs.
No. I will sit. I mean, if that exact stat line happens, I will sit and do this show in my underpants. There is no way. Career 34 touchdowns, 37 interceptions.
You should have to do the episode from your bathtub.
34 career touchdowns.
Why not? I'll do a show. I'll do a show from my bathtub if Geno Smith does this.
Treat yourself, King.
Wow. All right, let me write that down. 4K.
4,000. What'd you say? 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
30 and 11.
30 and 11.
Yeah, 30 touchdowns, 11.
I will do the show.
I mean, it's attainable.
I will do the show from my bathtub if this happens.
So he said 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That season, Geno Smith, 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
That's nuts.
And Bob Love has his number retired by the Bulls. Number 10.
There you go.
Put their stats next to each other, though. Bob Love and Kevin Love. I want to put them next to each other.
Bob Love, 3-time All-Star. Kevin Love, Billy?
Well, 5, but only 2 times for the Cavs. So Cavs, I mean, I don't know why they're retiring.
Bob Love had like a 6 or 7, 8-year period in the middle of his career where he was top 20 in MVP voting each year.
Top 20.
Well,
he was averaging 22 points.
Yeah,
top 20 in
22
MVP
points
voting.
and 7 rebounds.
Tyler Hero's top
9
20 in
seasons.
MVP voting.
He was top 5 a couple of years, I think. you know.
Bob Love's number 41 is also retired by the Southern Jaguars.
There you go. That's the biggest honor of all.
Are you guys going to just skip past how amazing that Amin prediction was? Like that is, and that Chris Whittingham hasn't actually paid off what he owes, any of what he owes, but especially that.
He did like in a shower. It didn't count, obviously. We always talk about how right Amin is, but we never talk about how wrong Chris and Tony were in this clip.
Or how wrong Amin is all the other times.
I think the funniest thing was Witty referring to underpants. Who says the word underpants?
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you use the word underpants? Yes or no?
There's only 2 other Southern Jaguars who have their number retired: Avery Johnson and Bobby Phills.
Wow, how about that? That's
A lot of Bulls have their numbers retired.
See, that's good intel. I don't need a
Well,
breakdown
not really.
of useless analytics. I want stats like that.
The Bulls
Give me
only have
list.
a couple players with their numbers retired.
More than 3?
I think 4.
Well, more than 3.
I don't know if you count. I mean, do you count executives? Because Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause are like Ring of Honor or whatever they call it there.
Oh, they probably rescinded Krause, though. They boo him now in that arena.
I've gone back.
It's not nice.
I've gone back 20 years, and I haven't found a single MVP awards voting that has been made public that has 20 names on it.
One of the weird
most
things.
I found is 17.
Times change. Back in the 60s and 70s, they released everything.
Yeah.
You know, back then you didn't have analytics. You had points per game, and that was all you needed. Assists and rebounds, the big 3.
Let me ask you guys this question. I don't know if you saw that Darius Slay gave his list of elite quarterbacks, and it's what you would presume it would be. It's Burrow, Mahomes, it's Lamar, and it's Josh Allen. That's his top tier.
Oh, no Gino, huh? Odd.
Well, no Jalen Hurts was the part that's odd because it's his teammate and the Super Bowl MVP. And the part of that was surprising is usually they just lie in that spot. What are you laughing about, Billy? No Gino Smith?
Oh, he's right. Yeah, Gino.
Yeah, that's true. It is no Gino Smith.
You know?
I cannot believe how much we've debated Geno Smith.
10
so far.
versus 12. It's
great.
crazy.
I mean, we're parsing here.
This is March.
Let me just say, I don't think I'm disrespecting Geno Smith nearly as much as you're overestimating.
That's why this is an annoying conversation, because neither of you are doing that. We're just kind of living in the middle. Geno Smith, huh?
But this is my
like 10 to 14 here.
No, but this is my larger point. The larger point is both of those teams end up being nowhere franchises because they can only get the 10th best quarterback. And that ends up making you 9-8 or 8-9 every single season. And so Pete Carroll just wants the stability of give me the guy that I know so that I could get my feet settled here and I don't have to do Minshew for a season when we all know what that is. And it ain't Geno Smith. Minshew, like what Greg is describing Geno Smith as is what Minshew actually is. I believe he's being unfair to Geno Smith because Minshew has gotten enough opportunities to be Geno Smith and hasn't been it in any of the offenses that he's been in.
Yeah, but you're also saying Geno Smith is basically a 500 quarterback who's not going to win a playoff game for you. That's a top 10 quarterback?
No. What I'm saying is it's impossible to do the evaluations and disentangle everybody from everyone else, and it becomes very hard to make accurate assessments on what someone is when he's got a bad offensive line, he's got good wide receivers, and he's in a lot of trouble, and he's unlucky when it comes to turnovers, at least last year, that it becomes very hard to make an accurate assessment on what that is, and it becomes very hard to change anybody's mind on what they already thought that was.
So I brought attention to the ongoing Geno Smith debate so you guys would take inventory of the situation and maybe share some regret. Instead, you took that as an opportunity to quadruple down on your very passionate, conviction-filled Geno Smith takes.
Might ban his name for the rest of the show if we keep doing this.
Okay, well, you guys don't want to talk quarterbacks all of a sudden?
I'd love talking quarterbacks, but this is like a solid move for Raiders. We understand why they did it. We understand why the Seahawks did it. upgraded the position for the Raiders. I think even Greg would agree with that. So
we have 3 more mentions of his name on this show allowed.
I mean, it's a good move by all teams involved, right? The Seahawks didn't want to pay him $40 million a year. The Raiders needed a quarterback.
Okay, he's better than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. All right, I'll give you that. He's not even the best Gino of all time.
Who's the best Gino?
Gino Vanelli.
Oh.
Let alone top 10 quarterback.
Gino Fuente's the worst.
You guys do understand that basically what you're doing is that 20 teams in that sport aren't worth ever talking about. That's what you're doing. That there are 20 teams that you guys just don't want to talk about. And that's fine.
I was good with this conversation the first time we did it.
Yeah. Yes, I think we all were. I'm in on it. I like going through. I like stats. I like digging through these Pro Bowl years of Geno Smith and say, man, more people should have paid attention to that.
That's one.
Yeah, but there you go. I'm good with it.
I would say that one of the items from the football weekend that I found most interesting in negotiations is that Myles Garrett didn't make the mess that I was hoping that he would make, because I found curious the sequence of events that happened here where Myles Garrett requests a trade. This is a new thing now. DK Metcalf requests a trade. Trey Hendrickson has requested a trade. All over the league in football, there are players suddenly requesting trades because they realize that the money is drying up or going to some of their teammates. But the sequence on Myles Garrett was he requests a trade, and then the reporting is that Cleveland's owner, Jimmy Haslam, refuses to meet with Garrett. And when I read that, I'm like, that seems really unwise. Also feels really interesting to have an owner lording over the proceedings in a way where he just refuses a meeting with his star player who is unhappy. And then the next thing you know, Myles Garrett signs for more than Max Crosby, more than any player in the league who's not a quarterback. And if I were Myles Garrett, I would have wanted my money elsewhere. I don't trust that organization with the next 3 years of my career. I'm going to waste the next 3 years of my career breaking my body just for money, and I'm going to spend all 3 years losing. If I were Myles Garrett, I would have tested my talent against the system and made whatever mess I needed to make and taken the fines of whatever mess I would have made. And in my next signing, because my talent is so large, I would have gotten my money back.
You would have Jimmy Butlered it.
I would have not Jimmy Butlered it, but Jimmy Butlered it for football when there's the common understanding from everyone watching, yeah, they betrayed that guy. Everyone watching that says, yeah, they did Deshaun Watson there, and he's got no help. Myles Garrett cannot succeed under those circumstances.
Yeah, but they just gave him $123.5 million guaranteed, $40 million a year, and he's someone that has an injury history. So, like, the idea of, you know what, I'm just going to sit out and not play, and then I'll get it next time around isn't actually an option for Myles Garrett when he has all that money guaranteed that he may not get next year if he gets injured.
Myles Garrett did make it as messy as possible. I mean, you could say, like, I guess he could have been more of a baby about it, but he came out with his trade request. He actually got the fans behind his trade request, and he did the media circuit all throughout Radio Row and the Super Bowl about his trade request. What happened was it's an already impossible contract to move, even with his superlative production. They probably gave him here the options. They never deviated from the fact that they never wanted to trade him, and they decided to make the problem go away by giving it the biggest contract ever for someone that's not a quarterback. And Myles Garrett, I know you'd like to do some role play here, saw the situation, laid out the entire lay of the land, knew that he was in the weird position of being a franchise player in the prime of his career, and yet the fans still understood his trade request, and he still decided to stay.
You say he made it as messy as he could have. No, he didn't. The way that he makes it messiest is by actually wanting to leave and leaving for no amount of money.
But he didn't. He wanted money.
He wanted money. He caved. So, like, if you're Myles Garrett, what you would have done is you would have signed the contract because that's what Myles Garrett did end up doing, which is he signed, okay, give me the big money bomb. I'll take that. That's fine enough. Everybody understands where he was coming from. It wasn't easy to move. It wasn't fair value for them to move him. Not many teams could even take the backloaded contract. So, ultimately, like, it was posturing. Myles Garrett, yeah, he was calling into question something that everybody agreed with. Someone saying that who has played those years for that franchise. Everybody understands that they've botched his career and that they're not doing enough winning. But that's a move in a negotiation. And Myles Garrett got what he wanted.
Exactly. If you're Myles Garrett, you posture. you say, I want to trade. I'm Mr. Competitive. I want to play for a contender. What you really want is the contract.
Yeah, and then the
he ended up
agent
getting.
says, okay, he's not happy. You want him happy? This is the number.
Well,
And
you
then they
guys,
agree.
but you guys misunderstand me. What I was hoping for is for a football player to be able to actually exert the power because he meant it, because it wasn't about money, because I want a football player to have so much value that they do not care where they get the money and therefore exert their power against the system.
What you want a football player is that doesn't care about money, and that's not what this incident was.
What am I missing? Like he used all the power, and he got the greatest deal ever. Yeah.
No,
what is not
Mike,
like?
Which part are you not understanding?
You
on
want
what
him
it
to
is
just
that
like
I'm
go to
saying?
another team that doesn't have the cap room?
I am wanting him to say, no amount of money keeps me in Cleveland. Get me out of here. I want to see how that looks in football when you actually have the talent to execute it.
Okay, I think we've seen it before, Le'Veon Bell before, and it didn't really work out for him. Like we've seen it. That's not what Myles Garrett's motivations were. If you want to like craft a scenario.
I do want to craft that scenario in
well, we're
football.
playing make-believe.
Yes, we are. Thank you, guys. Yes, we are playing make-believe with Myles Garrett, who isn't Le'Veon Bell. Myles Garrett represents a value in the NFL that not a lot of people have, and he wasn't going to risk injury by not playing. The mess I wanted him to make is to test all of the conservative powers in football that make it so that the system can land on the player. Which part of this are you guys not understanding about what I wanted here?
Just name him like Joey Football Player, because it's just not a real thing. Like he used all the leverage at his disposal.
Got all the
he won.
He used all the leverage. If all the leverage was only used to get money, if it was to get money and a better situation that doesn't ruin his career, he could have kept using that leverage.
If he were a different guy and he actually valued winning over money, then yeah. But he's not.
He gets to be more popular than ever in Cleveland right now because he's the guy who heroically re-signed with the lowly Browns rather than go somewhere else. He gets all the money he ever imagined having, and maybe he loves living in Cleveland. Maybe he doesn't like. No. Maybe
I mean, it's just for 3 years.
One of the
It's
dumbest
fine.
things you've ever
But
said.
3 years, $120 million. I'd love living in Cleveland for that.
I'm not crazy about how everyone just took that as fact. He likes Cleveland. He's a part of the community, and he
Most people would live in Cleveland for $40 million, whether or not they liked it.
Okay, that's a factor, whether or not he likes where he's living. I don't care if you make fun of it or not. And I don't know whether he loves living in Cleveland. But if he does, that's another reason.
I do know he doesn't love living in Cleveland. I do know that.
Dude, is this Joey Football Player again?
He's happy there because he's rich, but if he had his choice, he'd be like, he's not like, oh, this is where I'd be. Even after retirement, I'm
You
staying.
guys have no way of knowing
Where
that.
do you think he lives in the
Billy,
offseason?
you think he stays there in retirement?
He might. I
think you'll have a home
the
there.
under.
I think you'll have a home there.
That doesn't mean he doesn't like playing there now.
Right.
He could like it there.
We're just making fun of Cleveland, the place.
Guys,
And, I mean, the Cleveland organization.
And
this is so dystopian. This is one of the good stories. Yeah. It's a good story. A guy that has earned for that franchise the biggest contract they can hand out in the history of sports to a non-quarterback, and he earned it. Yeah. Everyone's happy.
I agree.
They get to keep their legend. He decided, you know what? I know I said a lot of hurtful things, but I got this contract, and we're here, Cleveland. You're going to still see my smiling face. And we know we have all sorts of uncertainty around the quarterback position, but you're going to see my smiling face over there, potentially throwing helmets at other people's heads.
He also didn't say all that many hurtful things. Like, you guys are saying Radio Row. Like, here's a news flash. Everyone was told they couldn't ask him about the trade request at Radio Row. Only one person was allowed to. It was Mina, and he said nothing. So, like, he said the day before he went to Radio Row, I want to be traded, and everyone that had him booked was like, you can't ask him about that. And it's like, okay, so what do we ask him about? And that's exactly how that went.
Well, he said that he wanted to play for a team that could, like, maybe win something at some
that's
point
what you
in his
say
career.
when you want to leverage to get more money.
But, like, I could see people being hurt by that. But to throw Dan a bone here, like, I, as a sports fan who's, like, not really, like, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like, yeah, I want to see the best players play for the best teams. And it is a bummer that one of the best players in the league is going to be on this Cleveland Browns team that is in cap hell for the next how many years because they made the worst deal in NFL history to sign Deshaun Watson.
But the only way he could have played for one of the best teams was by making substantially less than what he's going to make. So why would he want to go and play for one of the best teams so you guys can feel good in exchange for $20 million a year.
It's not just so that we can feel good, but one of the things that I'm objecting to here is I don't want an all-time talent winning 4 games a year and ruining the end of his career because they've got no chance. I'd like my all-time talents to play in relevant football games. And you're right, he doesn't have to do that for me, but I want Joey Football X to be a hypothetical player, one of them to pick. Yeah, you know what? I would like to be relevant and play as an all-time great on a team that actually makes the playoffs, has a chance, as opposed to this one.
But I think the point is that, like, he got the money that he wanted, so we can't put other desires into his heart that he may not have. Like, it seems like this was a happy ending, I guess.
And it's all going to get fixed when they draft Cam Ward.
Everyone wants a service dog with Steve-O.
We are joined by a very famous persona from America, and also Steve-O, because Wendy from Peru is an internet sensation. Go ahead and tell the story, Steve-O, before we get in here. And always thank you for making time for us. But tell us why it is that your dog is more famous than you are, because I didn't think it was allowed that you can just find a dog on the streets of Peru, fall in love with it, and then just bring it over to America. I thought, didn't Johnny Depp or somebody get in trouble for trying to bring an animal into the country without the proper permission? Like,
well, that was the other way around. He already had the dog and was trying to smuggle it into Australia. I was in Peru for a mountain climbing expedition, and I found Wendy here on the streets. And fortunately, the mountain climbing expedition was like a TV show, and the production jumped through all the hoops for me. So I really didn't have to do anything. And I was able to bring Wendy home. And the video I made about finding her, it garnered over 100 million views on Facebook, making it the most viewed video I've ever put on the internet. And it's kind of devastating for an attention whore like me. You know, I've like, with the lengths that I've gone to, you know?
Welcome back to Unrivaled. It's playoff time in the Unrivaled League right now. You already know these games tonight matter so much. You can cut the tension with a butter knife. You don't even need a real knife. You can cut it with a butter knife. Ding, 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 ding. Look what we got here. Linko, man. You got to know I'm locked in. Let me get a ball.
There you go. This has been the best vibe ever, Bobby. Unrivaled is the best kept secret out there. Everybody's having a great time, you know.
Unrivaled is literally unrivaled. We have the best top athletes here for 10 weeks straight. Like, it's a movie. It's a vibe. You get to see your favorite players in different elements.
Go, sis. Go, sis. Go, sis. Yes, sir. With the Sabrinas. Go, Sabrinas. I like your swag, man. Swag the swag. Sis, come on, man. How do you keep this spectacular beard up?
I mean, it's normally gray as, and so the purple's just more fun.
Yeah. You hear it, ladies and gentlemen. Purple's more fun. I mean, I gotta ask you, but who your favorite Unrivaled player and why?
So Angel Reese is my favorite. I think, she's a promising future, not just in this league, but in the WNBA.
Express your love for Kennedy Carter on the camera.
Somebody better pick my girl up. That's all I know. She's a dog. True dog to the game.
Man, look at all the energy. You gotta dig it. Playoff time is around the corner. We with the Miami Heat legend, and the Highlight League champion. You feel me? UD, man. What you think about this Unrivaled League, big bro?
I love it, man. It's fast paced. It's a lot of action. It's up and down. You get to show your skill set. You can't hide. You know what I'm saying?
No hide. Yeah, we want to see the handshake. Nice. Yeah, that was nice. That was amazing, man. I almost started crying on camera, man. Come on, man. Don't do that to me in here, man. Can't wait to go inside to see those jerseys that's available. You feel me? Ooh-wee. Look at the sauce and the swag they got available now. Rest in peace to my bank account. What up, my sister? What jersey you thinking about getting today?
Honestly, I'm looking at a Goomba Wally, number 24, but still repping the laces. At the end of the day, still repping the laces.
Ooh, 3 Janae shirt. You dig it? Come on, you got to know. Look at the jersey. Oh, my God. The first ever jersey so nice it blacked out the arena. T-shirt time. Who wants a T-shirt? Who wants a T-shirt?
That puts women first, I'm into it.
Hell yeah. The Laces just punched their ticket to the playoffs, dog. Simultaneously eliminating the Mets. Sis, how do you feel about the Mets losing, going down like that?
I know, I don't want to talk about it. But go, Jackie. We love Jackie.
I will be back. If I can become a season ticket holder, I will. Call me.
Man, every year we got to make it a tradition. These type of basketball games, intense. So much love. We going to send some love back to y'all, man. See you later. Same bat channel, same bat time.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Billy wanted to talk more Gino Smith.
Did he?
That's 2. Now you get 1 more.
Gino Smith. Oh, now we
All right, that's it.
It's a damn shame.
Now we can.
Next person, penalty box.
Gino Vanelli.
Yeah, Gino Auriemma.
Let's go out to Roy. He is with the Panthers. He is on the ice. He is ready to give us an update on everything that's happening with the Florida Panthers. This is exactly where all hockey stand-ups should be and how all hockey stand-ups should look. Mike Ryan, Roy, I'm curious your opinion here because the hockey show that is often on Fridays was able to react to this is in real time, correct? When this happened last week, Mike Ryan is not here for Brad Marchand, though. How do you feel? That is a minority opinion I feel like he's expressing on behalf of Panther fans. I do not believe that he speaks for all Panther fans, that if you can get a 36-year-old Brad Marchand for $125,000, you absolutely end up doing that. Roy, where are you? And thank you for joining us from the arena. What can you give us in the way of information over there?
He's still injured. He's going to possibly be on the ice to do some stuff. But right now he's going to travel with the team up to Boston. And that's when he's going to finally say goodbye to his former teammates. And he actually got broken up a little bit about talking about his time in Boston and how that went down before he was traded. So right now, we're waiting for him to come back into the lineup. But can you imagine him being on that second line with Sam Bennett and Matty Tkachuk? Oh, the Panthers would be the most hated team in the league.
Roy, he called Sam Bennett a scumbag today, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did it in a joking fashion, yes. He actually loved him, and they got together during the Four Nations tournament. Him, Sam Bennett, and Sam Reinhart, they played together for Team Canada. And it seems like they patched things up, considering what happened last year in the playoffs when he got punched in the face by Sam Bennett.
Billy mentioned earlier that it seems wildly inefficient to have Marchand fly down here to do this press conference only to go right back up there and be there with the team for the first road game in Boston.
Yeah, it is kind of inefficient, but, you know, he had to get down here, get downloaded on the actual goings-on with the team, and David Dwork is right next to me. But, yeah, I mean, it does seem inefficient for him to go down and then go back up, but he has to get his stuff and everything. But he's traveling with the team throughout the entire road trip, a 6-game road trip coming up for the Panthers.
What is the level? I'd like to talk to Dwork here, if you don't mind, since he came into the shot awkwardly, and you pointed out. I thought it would have been slightly more amusing if he had just awkwardly appeared and then left. But David Dwork, your co-host on the hockey show that sometimes appears on Friday, what would you give us in the way of fan and customer reaction to the Florida Panthers behaving like the Tampa Bay Lightning, stashing away Tkachuk so that they could get a Marchand?
I think there's a lot of anger in the world out there, and I think Panther fans don't give a bleep about it because they were the ones that were angry. Now they have this opportunity to do what teams wish they could do. The reaction on Twitter has been fun to see, just because I think from our perspective, we're just basking in the greatness of what the Panthers are doing right now, and everyone else can just kind of cry about it.
Roy, I still am confused at watching and seeing the Florida Panthers after 30 years behave like an adult, mature franchise that reacts competently to what it is that their customers want.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? I'm getting used to it now. It's been, I don't know, how long has Bill Zito been in charge as general manager? 5 years now, so I'm starting to finally get used to it. An actual responsible, stable organization that's playing hockey down here, and it's actually fun to see.
Given the history, is it possible that that the Panthers traded for Brad to ruin the end of his career? Because they have like such a wealth of talent that they've decided, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to mess with this guy because we hate him and we're going to make sure that he's miserable. You put on a good show today, you give him the sweater, you give him the hat, everybody's happy-go-lucky, and then you really make the rest of his career difficult.
Well, considering that Brad Marchand actually requested to be traded here, I doubt that's the case. But, hey, do what you want to do, Billy.
He always will.
I'm just asking.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm where you are, though. I don't feel like that is pulsating Hockey Nation everywhere around you. I'm not feeling the kind of enthusiasm around the Panthers that I've been told exists, that you feel like you're standing in the middle of something cold and antiseptic.
Because nobody's here, Dan. Practice hasn't started yet, and as soon as practice starts, I believe it might be. Is it an open practice today?
No.
No, it's not an open practice today. So, yeah, there's not a lot of excitement because there are no fans here.
Okay.
Wow. Hey, Roy, where would you rank Gino Smith among NFL quarterbacks?
We can't talk about Gino Smith.
He's just writing this down.
We'll
see. Let
just
Roy
curious.
answer.
Hold on.
Listen, I'm not going to the penalty box when I get to the studio tomorrow, so you're not going to bait me into that. No, sir.
All right, but pick a number between 10 and 15.
10 and 15?
Yeah.
Lower the
12.
better.
Wow, that's where Greg had him. That's where Greg had him.
Putting you down for Team 12.
Incredible.
All right. Thank you, Roy. We appreciate the coverage from an empty and cold arena where the players are not yet practicing. That locker room still smells bad, though, right? No matter whether they're not sweaty or are sweaty, the locker room always smells like mildew and must.
They have invested in an exhaust fan, so it's not as smelly. So good for us.
Wow. Okay, good. Breaking news.
Each locker has its own little air conditioning filter that filters air.
It smells like Brian Scrudland.
It does still smell like Brian Scrudland. He's right, and that's not a good smell. It's swampy and it's not good. Even
Hockey's the smelliest sport, right?
By far.
Football's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. Not hockey, though.
I think hockey's by far the worst. Then it goes football, soccer, baseball. And then
golf smells great.
Yeah, golf doesn't smell that bad.
Football tends to be a bigger locker
Dork
room
laughing.
with more players in it, so there's more general open air. For some reason, the hockey locker room is smaller than I would like it to be, but they also have fewer players, right? The hockey locker room is a little more cramped than it needs to be. I feel like all hockey. Do I have this wrong, Roy? I feel like all hockey locker rooms need to be twice as large as they actually are.
Well, there's only, 18 to 20 players in a locker room as opposed to a football team, which has about 60. So, yeah, it does need to be a bit bigger, especially the Panthers locker room. I mean, that arena's been, 1998? It's over 20 years old. So, they're not going to build a bigger locker room in there for them unless they get a new arena, which I hope actually
Champions
happens
deserve
soon,
a bigger locker room.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
Their brand new facility is amazing. One of the big upgrades in all of sports from Team HQs. But Roy, I'm coming to grips with the fact that I'm in the minority here. I think most Panther fans, it took them a second to warm up to it, but when they realized what they gave up, which is next to nothing, and the fact that they got to hurt Boston fans yet again without even doing something on the ice, they're in on this concept. But for me, I'm always going to hate him. Yeah. I like hating him. Yeah. I'm sure there's a hypothetical that you could craft, game-winning goal to send the Panthers to the Stanley Cup final or a huge goal in the Stanley Cup final where I may crack. No. But as someone that has sat on my hands every time Alonzo Mourning is introduced at the AAA and maintaining that level of resentment, I don't think I'm going to budge on this one. Yeah. I'm going to continue hating Brad Marchand. Where do you align yourself with?
Yeah. Well, Brad Marchand, as a person, as a human being, I've changed my mind about him maybe 3 years ago for his stance on Tony DeAngelo, for his stance on the on the Bruins trying to sign a prospect by the name of Mitchell Miller, who bullied a developmentally disabled black kid by, making him eat a piece of candy out of a urinal and repeatedly called him the N-word. And the Bruins decided not to sign him based on how Brad Marchand and a couple of the other players felt on the team. So as a person, I definitely have turned around on him. He seems like a stand-up guy. But as a player, he's perfect for this team. Absolutely perfect for this team.
What was that sound?
Probably the PR person dropping the notes, hearing
film.
Roy invoke that pass. I thought you were going to go face licking.
I thought Mike Ryan was down on Marchand as a person. Mike Ryan.
Yeah, I'm down. I don't like him as a person or a player, but whatever. He's a fourth liner. It's all right. Maybe sometimes we'll swap Greer for him.
He's a fourth liner?
Yeah. I mean, go through our wingers. Who do you rate more? A bad player, bad person. Occasionally, if we want to spark, maybe dress him occasionally. That's cool with me. But I'm playing Greer over him. Not taking Jesper out.
Yeah, I doubt that he's
not taking Mackey out. Are you taking Mackey out? I'm not taking Mackey out. Verhaeghe seemed to figure it out a little bit.
Mackey's not going to lead the lineup either. I'm not going to lead the lineup.
Greer, see you later, Greer.
Let's not marry ourselves to the idea that Brad Marchand has to play every game. Is what I'm saying.
Is this the best and the deepest Panther team there has ever been?
Yeah.
Dork.
So,
Yes, Roy. Yes.
That coming into March, they were already favored to get out of the East and make the final. But after this trade deadline, I think it's safe to say that they're the Stanley Cup favorite.
Who do you fear the most?
Rose. No, I would say Colorado's probably a good team to be fearing right now. I don't fear the Jets.
I do.
I am here for off-mic
they've got
comedy.
amazing goaltending, and they're really deep.
I'm also here for you just naming teams in the Western Conference because that ain't our problem until we get to our third straight Stanley Cup final, potentially.
Yeah, Mike's right. It's not our problem right now. We'll worry about it come late June.
You don't fear Ovechkin?
No. I think they might not make it out of the first round.
Yeah.
Really?
They're not built for the playoffs.
They're not built for the
Washington's
playoffs,
not built for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're built like the Panthers President's Trophy team. Exciting hockey, end-to-end rushes, but when you get to the playoffs where everybody starts beating the snot out of each other, it doesn't really work that well.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate all of your work on the hockey show and beyond. They are very excited. Everything around the Panthers is feeling championship excellent, and Bill Zito is somebody who is climbing up the ranks in terms of culture and legacy-making executives in the history of South Florida because he's got a lot of popularity as it regards the architecture of that. We have learned that it is difficult to stay atop the championship mountain, not just in hockey, but you saw that Denver won the championship, and now yesterday you're watching, and Denver is getting run out of the building late in the game against Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City is going to be good for a really long time. And when that game got to deciding time yesterday, the best offensive player I've ever seen stopped mattering. What happens with Denver when Jokic is on the court and when he's off the court is a bit stupefying architecturally, that they haven't gotten him more help in Denver. He puts up the first 30-20-20 in league history, and do you understand how disorienting it is to have the first 30-20-20 in league history delivered by somebody who talks about their game this way?
I can't dunk it, guys. Did you see me play? I never dunk. Did you see me dunk? I never dunk.
What is happening in this league?
It is so strange to see him go for 30, 20, and 20 and be entirely unstoppable, but Denver hasn't gotten him enough help. He should make the mess that Jimmy made, even though he won the championship, because he's like, you guys can't do better than Aaron
You found your
Gordon.
Myles Garrett. We found our Joey Football. He's in Denver.
The problem with him, though, is when he says, like, I don't want to play basketball, I won't come back, he really won't. Like, he really will not. If he's gone, he's not going to come back.
Yeah, unlike Myles Garrett, I believe every word that he would say about the sport of basketball and not wanting to play it and being willing to hold out for millions and millions.
Toronto was a one-year champion and then fell to the bottom of the league. Denver has not fallen to the bottom of the league, but they also haven't gotten any better since winning the championship, and a whole lot of teams around them have gotten better when they've been basically the same 55-win team. And Michael Porter is saying that they might be in a last dance type of situation this year where it gets broken up if they don't win a championship, and I don't know how he's doing the arithmetic on that one, because it's not going to be a last dance situation where they get rid of Jokic. They might get rid of Michael Porter. They might get rid of Aaron Gordon. But when you've got Jamal Murray and Jokic together, and that's not good enough anymore. What's happening in Cleveland and Oklahoma City suggests that the league has passed them by, and obviously Boston is still there beating the Lakers, and LeBron is leaving the game as Jason Tatum goes for his usual quiet 40.
All right, and let's pump the brakes on comparing us to the Last Dance. Like Dan already outlined, you're a one-time champion. It's like Van Vliet going like, all right, we're in our last dance phase here. Let's relax. Let's win more than one.
It's always, though, something that I enjoy monitoring when the rest of the league gets competitive on what the championship standard is and then passes the championship standard, because we're all watching Denver. We saw what it took to win the championship, and all of us are looking at that and saying that's not good enough anymore. The league has elevated beyond where I've seen a lot of people, including Greg Cody, complaining about all the leads that the Miami Heat are blowing and then blaming that on Eric Spoelstra, when what's actually happening there is these games are decided in the fourth quarter the way that OKC and Denver was yesterday. The game's closed through three quarters, and in the fourth quarter you just see OKC run away. The Miami Heat are so limited offensively that when it gets tight late, they can't hold on to their leads because offensively they are so wildly limited. And you can sit here and say they've got a bunch of double-digit leads, but in that league, that has ceased to matter. That's not something that matters anymore, that you have a double-digit league, that they can be erased the moment that a team makes 4 threes. And so I don't know what your assessment is there, but it's not enough anymore to have just Jokic doing MVP things, because they may take the MVP away from him because they're bored by him, but he's having his best season. Statistically, that human being is getting better, and the architecture around him isn't getting better. That's not good enough anymore. We're in consensus on that, correct? Right. What was good enough a few years ago is no longer good enough in Denver, even though the MVP is better than he's ever been.
I think you're giving me a storyline that might actually get me to tune in for basketball reasons. I think a lot of it has to do with how humanizing that clip was. That's the funniest Jokic clip I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, really good.
Him talking to kids and just flatly saying, no, I'm this dominant player, maybe the greatest offensive force ever, and I don't dunk. Yeah. I don't do that. So when you have the tinge of doubt, and there's more than a tinge when it comes to Denver, you have this guy being a little bit more affable, and now he has all the tools. He's unstoppable, but he's got all this doubt about this team, and you add a little last dance element, I'm in on the Nuggets.
Can you guys explain to me why it is that we do what it is that we did earlier in the show with OKC and Cleveland that would make those fan bases insane about how dismissive we are about their teams being excellent and how bad a finals that would be if it's OKC and Cleveland? Can you explain to me why it is and how it is we do that with our big market bias, where if I took those teams and simply put them in Lakers uniforms, in Knicks uniforms, in Celtics uniforms, I've got a kind of history in it that makes the finals more interesting than this would be, even though that it is not unclear the two best teams during the regular season. Boston will have something to say about that in the postseason, but during the regular season, these are the two best teams. And if I tell an audience outside of basketball, not the basketball heads, here are you two worthy finals teams, why is it that I make it so small market onerous that I offend OKC and Cleveland's fan base when I say the nation doesn't want to watch that, even though basketball fans do.
I think you're looking at it through a likely TV ratings prism, right? Because
Just interest. I'm not doing TV ratings. I'm just doing interest and just generally how we want storylines that are familiar. We want the history that we're used to. It takes us a minute to adapt to. What do you mean I have to be paying attention to how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, or how good it is when it's Garland and Allen and Mobley and Mitchell? What do you mean I have to change how I do all of my information gathering on who's the best because it's what I'm used to being the best as opposed to the new best?
I don't, for a second, I totally understand where Cavs and Thunder fans are coming from. But we've been having these discussions about the NBA is at this inflection point. People aren't tuning in as much. And it's all happening when Cleveland and Oklahoma City are at the top of their respective conferences and have been the best teams pretty much wire to wire here. Everyone's kind of bracing for that, and the numbers are telling us they're not really digging it. We had a nice little pop on Christmas Day when it came to ratings, but generally across the board, the story isn't a good one this year. They're asking Adam Silver every avail, what are you going to do to change your sport? And this is all happening with Oklahoma City and Cleveland to top it. It's not really working for the customer at large.
I mean, by everybody, I mean people like us, probably want Knicks versus Lakers or some city for city matchup like that.
I don't. I'm confused. I want excellence. I don't care the uniforms that it wears.
I think there's going to be a growing appetite for Cavaliers and Thunder if coming into the finals, these are the two best teams in the regular season. SGA is the next tier of all-time superstar players, perhaps. I think this is a matchup that's going to grow on people. I'm interested in that final.
The problem is, though, like if the ratings are down and casual fans aren't watching during the regular season, when you see teams like the Cavaliers and the Thunder, because you haven't been watching and you don't know how good the teams are, you don't have that connection point. So, like, if you tune into the finals, you want to see the familiarity and you want it to feel bigger than it is. Even if these are the two best teams in the league, you're not watching during the regular season. For whatever reason, one reason or another, the ratings have been down in the regular season. The All-Star game was kind of a mess where they weren't really happy with the product. They weren't really happy with the competitions. So if you're trying to get the casuals to watch in the finals, the casuals are going to want the teams that they know of, not necessarily the best teams, because they don't know these teams as the best teams because they're not watching them as they're becoming the best teams, which is the problem the NBA is having. You don't have the fans that aren't watching every night knowing who the best players and best teams are because they just want to see LeBron James in every championship.
I think part of that, though, is like a snake eating its tail because the coverage just focuses on the big market teams, and the coverage in some respects is lazier. It's easier to talk about the Cowboys every day than to talk about the Bengals and the Browns. But like as media continues to like conglomerize, I don't know if that's a word, and just get more condensed and focused into like these big markets, then you're going to get less and less really outstanding local coverage. And that's how it's been for the last few years. Like there's fewer opportunities to work in smaller markets now if you're a media member than there is to work at one of these major networks. And they're just going to keep covering what they always have been covering.
It's a like interesting, I guess, to maybe just us conversation because people hate the media talk, but like whose responsibility does it become to fix it, right? Like, is it the league or is it on the media partners? Because the media partners are just going to go to what they always go to where they know they're going to get the numbers, and they're not necessarily, like the national media isn't going to necessarily invest in, you know what, I need to develop the fans' interest in the league and the product and getting them to know the players. That's kind of on the league to let you know who their stars are and why you should be interested, where the media partners just want the numbers, so they just go to who they know will deliver them or who they hope will deliver them.
And there's always been skepticism for younger teams that are ascending, the old theory that you have to suffer a little bit, but in the few couple of years sample that we have of expanded playoffs and in this load management era, there have been kind of some screwy NBA finals when before it used to be pretty predictable. You have a devalued regular season and fans are like, nah, I don't trust you to get past the second round, just like you did last year. You fell on your face. So when you want to be serious and you want to actually clear some adversity in the postseason, that's when I'll pay attention to you.
I want to get the sound, though, of Charles Barkley going after Kendrick Perkins and ESPN in general in a way that bears monitoring, Greg, because you have heard Shaq and Charles doing something on Inside the NBA that I believe doesn't get seen very often. They're headed toward ESPN, and they're complaining about heading over to ESPN. There's some discomforts involved. I know Charles doesn't want to work there. I'm super interested to see how all of that plays out. But he's calling coworkers fools and idiots, or future coworkers, because he's complaining about what Jessica just mentioned, which is that anytime you turn into the main industry spokespeople on cheerleading and celebrating the sport. And I don't know whose responsibility it is here. Is it the media's responsibility to get fans properly informed and interested in change and the newcomers? Because the newcomers are here. They've arrived. Anthony Edwards is the reason that OKC didn't advance last year. Minnesota's less good. OKC has done some suffering. That OKC team was really good last year. Young. This year, they're better. They've grown. Holmgren is an important piece to OKC. And what have they lost? 11 times this year? Cleveland, as I mentioned, 3 double-digit winning streaks this year. They're dragging people. And Charles Barkley is saying of the media coverage what Jessica's saying, which is you can't just be talking about the Lakers and Steph all the time, but look at what LeBron Steph did on Christmas Day. It's the only game that was able to put a dent against the NFL in terms of attracting people because we are lazy about liking what we've always liked.
But respectfully, Charles Barkley doesn't watch the majority of the teams in the league either. Like, he never knows who's on what team coming into the league. Like, he's the last person that should be criticizing media networks only showing the games of like 5 teams.
Yeah, I think I'm like the second to last because I'm not even the biggest NBA fan. But I do think you can speak to it more broadly just outside of the NBA, where like I feel like the people that host a lot of these shows and like are sort of like the vocal leaders of the sports don't realize how much fans listen to them when they're telling you a player is good or when they're telling you a team is good or a team is interesting. Like, a lot of people do listen to that, and it does impact the way they view something. And if you're just talking about the same teams being interesting and good over and over again, like, eventually you're probably going to be like, ugh, the Thunder, like, that's gross. But, you know, a decade ago when the Thunder were really good, I don't think it was very hard for people to view them that way and be excited to see that team make a run. It's just like a lot of things have changed in the last decade with how we're viewing media.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Also, historically, in terms of like really touting the game and trying to be the type of entity that gets as many possible people in the tent and lifting up the product, that's not really what TNT has done with its basketball coverage. It doesn't really lift up the product. Half the time it's the guys taking the piss about like being bored on another blowout that's at halftime, and they're just joshing each other, and that's what people are drawn to, the personalities, and they're just perpetuating that.
But when we talk about media responsibilities and we talk about the main voices in the NBA, not only talking about the same teams, but also gravitating toward the dramatic storylines that don't have much of anything to do with basketball. I'm going to play some of this Charles Barkley sound. He's been doing it a lot of times. I'm not even sure this is the right sound because I asked them to get it now and it doesn't look like the sound that I'm looking for. But I just wanted to ask the group and the people listening to this so that they understand the nature of the problem. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander walked into your life right now, walked in front of you, would you recognize him? I'm asking general sports fan.
Just because of the commercial, the What a Pro Wants. That's and he's tall.
Yeah, he's very
tall. And I would have been like, who's this tall guy? You look familiar. What a Pro Wants commercial.
He's not that tall, though, because I think he's not walking in like 7-footers walk into a room and you know that he's a basketball player. He's tall.
I'm starting to realize I think I watch the most NBA of anyone in this room.
I don't doubt it.
That's a problem.
I don't think that you do, but let's see.
She watches every night with Lehman.
This room,
she watches the Knicks with regularity.
I watch basketball every night. I watched all the women's conference tournaments this weekend. Wow. What a weekend. UCLA, Big Ten champs. That will never not sound weird to me. However, I should not be the one watching the most pro basketball ever.
Did you get mad at Draymond Green for going after your man's beloved Karl Anthony Towns unfairly by suggesting the other day and then apologizing awkwardly that Karl Anthony Towns did not play in the Knicks-Warriors game because he was afraid of Jimmy Butler?
Okay, yes. Like the initial claim was weak, but then the apology was just so bad. The apology was like, well, the show must go on. It was just like not really there, and it kind of bummed me out because Karl Anthony Towns was at a funeral, so he missed the game. Like one of his friends died of cancer or something. It was just very uncomfortable. The whole thing made me feel super uncomfortable to watch.
Some people are really mad at Draymond. Really mad. Like I saw think pieces calling for Draymond and Turner to evaluate the relationship with Draymond. Yeah, that's a real bad look for Draymond. Yeah. Awful.
Let's play the sound here of Charles Barkley going after what could be his future coworkers.
I saw a fool idiot on TV talking about the Lakers save the NBA.
Save the NBA?
Yeah. He's an idiot and a fool, but he know who he is. What's his name, Shaq?
Which one you talking about?
Kendrick Perkins.
Oh.
He said the Lakers, first of all, the Lakers have had a great 2 weeks. He said the Lakers saved the NBA season. That's because them fools on the other network, which we're going to be working for next year, that's all they talk about. Let me tell y'all something.
Tell me something.
And first of all, I want all the smoke. I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard or anything like that.
I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard.
Right.
I like that.
Hey, man,
I'm stealing that one.
The Lakers are doing great. Got a long way to go. But the reason the season's been going great for the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Y'all just want to talk about the Warriors and the Lakers. They're both doing great. Don't get me wrong. If I turn out to be wrong, I got no problem with that. But y'all are idiots because y'all talk about the Lakers and the Warriors all the time.
Do you know the history of whistling when you walk past a graveyard? Because I've heard the expression, but I don't know what it actually means. Why do you whistle when you're going past a graveyard?
I honestly don't know. To appear nonchalant, maybe, to appear as if you're not frightened to death.
But the way he was using it is saying, I don't whistle when I walk past a graveyard, and I just don't know why someone whistles by a graveyard.
Maybe that's a bad omen. Like
you wake the dead, maybe,
You're in a happy mood while walking past something somber. I don't know. My dad actually loves a graveyard.
I do, and have never whistled in one.
It's to pretend to be cheerful and not afraid of passing a graveyard.
That makes sense.
So did he use it correctly? I don't whistle when I walk past a graveyard. Did he use it correctly? I don't.
He did.
Is he unbothered? Did he come off unbothered?
Are you guys like my dad, though? Like, if my dad, if we're traveling somewhere in our hotel, there's a graveyard, he's just like, all right, I'm going to go walk over to the graveyard. He just likes to.
All the time. We stop at graveyards.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
No, I embrace them.
Have you seen one before?
I think most ghosts are good. I have not. I mean, not in a physical sense,
Have you felt one?
There have been imaginary, perhaps, apparition.
You're in the garage late at night, all of a sudden you hear something. Is that Alan Cherry?
No, not really. No.
Why do you do this? What is it that you do? Do you ever meet fellow grave lovers?
Sometimes, yeah. It's surprising that you'll meet people who aren't there to see a loved one. They're there because they're fascinated by history, and graveyards are history. I mean, I think the oldest one in the United States in Boston has, like Civil War generals and everything buried next to, 20 feet away from people who died a couple of years ago.
There's older graveyards. We just built stadiums on them.
Yeah, they.
You mean like Revolutionary War, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also like ancient burial mounds all over.
Yeah, we stop at a lot of them. I never pass a graveyard that I don't want to see.
I do fancy a stroll through a graveyard if it's convenient.
Nah, that's odd.
Chelsea play right next to a real old Gothic graveyard.
Yeah.
And it's on the way over to the grounds. I like to cut through and just see the history.
So you just small talk with people at the graveyards when you're there?
Sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's your icebreaker?
Do you ever whistle?
I'm not a whistler. My dad whistled a lot. But like
Wild Bill?
When we were in New Orleans, I love the New Orleans graveyard with all the above ground stuff and
There's
everything.
probably multiple.
And I had a conversation there with an older woman who was there not to see anyone, but because she also was fascinated with graveyards.
Maybe she was a ghost.
Yeah.
How do you know?
How do I know she wasn't a ghost?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Did you ask?
It's not like I poked her to see if my
that would have been odd.
Finger went through dust. You
don't think this is weird, that all of this is strange? Certainly you're not running into several other people often that are interested in just going to a graveyard where – put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you ever walk through the graveyard that doesn't have anyone in it who you know?
I think a lot of people do. But I'm not one to strike up a conversation with a stranger. So.
But what is happening here that your family clearly doesn't want to do this with you, right? You're getting someplace with your family, and there goes Dad again. He's wandering toward the graveyard.
Like I can remember as a kid, like in New Hampshire. I don't even remember why we were there. In Maine, somewhere up north. We're at our hotel, and my dad's just like, I'm gonna walk. I saw a graveyard down the street. I'm gonna go, and we're just like, I'll stay. Thank you.
Oh my God! If we're at a hotel in walking distance to a major graveyard, I almost said I've died and gone to heaven, which would have been a weird thing to say. I edited myself.
Coming up on the Hockey Show on Friday, the trade deadline has passed, and it's the road to the playoffs. David, Rose, Ethan, and myself will talk about what happened this week. Plus, the Panthers are on a 6-game road trip, which includes a big one in Toronto on Thursday.
Should be fun.
And catch me talking numbers. I gave you stats now with numbers.
Well, stats usually have numbers, and the distinction that you're making here is, obvious.
Yeah, but I just don't talk barky. I talk numbers.
I don't believe you.
Rose talks numbers coming up on the Hockey Show this week. Tune in.
Hello. This is just an echo.
Goodbye.